Hello and welcome to my video. Today I'm going to do some glazing. I've got a couple of paintings. This one, which is what I painted on my last video, and it's now dry. It's had 2 weeks, and I never use lots and lots of paint, so you know, they do tend to dry quite quickly. Occasionally they don't. Sometimes they play hard to get and they never seem to dry, but this one's okay. Now it's okay for the first stages of a painting. And I want to just sort of lift it a little bit. I like the light coming through here and this bit of light here, but I don't think it'll hurt if it has a bit of red chucked on it. So that's what we're going to do. And I'll do my best as usual to keep out of the way. Glazing. This is how easy glazing is. This is just Japanese red with oil, and you can see almost straight away it starts to have quite a dramatic effect. Don't worry about where you go. You can go over the tree a little bit. Why not? Let's make the tree slightly warmer. Just put a few touches of red in there. Now, on the video, you'll see, for some reason, I don't think it's necessarily my camera, I think it's just video, is different from still photography. So this looks a bit washed out. At the end of the video, I will take a photograph and I'll insert that. I'll pull that up on the screen and you'll see what the real colours look like. And it's quite a difference. For some reason my video camera just does not show a lot of contrast, whereas my ancient Nikon, or Nikon as I call it, does. So there's just a touch of red. This is literally how quick it is. Let's assume that there's a sunset. It's still bright over there, but the sun is setting over here, so the light, you know, goes across the other side, which is interesting because here, where I'm standing, this painting, that's west over that way. When the sun sets over there, the sky is often more interesting behind me when I look east because of reflections. And light in skies goes where it wants, not where you'd necessarily expect it to. It just basically bounces around because clouds are like giant white sheets in the sky. And as I said, it just bounces the light around. So if the sun is setting here, I might even add an extra strong bit of red in there, see? You can't go wrong with glazing. There's no such thing as wrong. It's just different. And of course, if I don't like that, I can just take it off. For instance, there's a bit of cloud that's got some red on it there. And if I think that that is too red, all I'm going to do is just sort of do that. And suddenly it's not too red. It's got a little bit of light in it. So you, seriously, and I don't know, I mean, I've heard from people say, oh, I'd like to attempt glazing. I think attempt is the wrong word. Don't think of it as attempt, because that tends to imply there might be failure involved, and you don't really want that. Nobody wants failure. So let's just do it and then see what happens. So there's a bit of light bouncing across from here up to there, catching just the left side of the clouds. I always go on about brushes and brush prices, but you know, you can buy unbelievably expensive brushes. In fact, I mentioned it when I was painting the original painting, but you know, this is the cheapest French paintbrush I think you can buy, almost. I don't remember what this cost, but it was probably no more than €5. And that's mostly for the wood. You know, you get an extra bit of wood there. So when the painting's finished, you've got a bit of firewood. Beg your pardon, when the brush is finished, you've got a bit of firewood. There we are. Basically, that's all there is to it. This could potentially be a very fast video. But when you see what I'm going to do when I finish this, the next painting is enormous. There'll be a break while I get the scaffolding up to get it attached to my easel. And it gets more interesting because that's never been on this easel. This is, I don't know when I painted it, but I'll insert a picture on the screen now so you can just have a little glimpse of what it looks like. So yeah, it's really big. I'll give you the dimensions later, or if I don't, or if I forget, which is I'm quite capable of, I'll put it in the description box below. So I'm going to get more paint on the brush, just to sort of fire up this area here a little bit. So this is, you know, I haven't wiped it, I just added a bit more paint. So if I do this, I can get some really bright red over there. Don't forget, clouds don't follow hills. The hills are here, the clouds are over there. Okay, so if you have a horizontal cloud here, you've got to make it known that it's still going to be horizontal over there. So this bit of red that I just put on needs to not follow the hill. Does that make sense? I hope so. If it's that level there, it needs to be that level there. Don't put it on a slant, it won't work. Now, if I pull this red down onto the hills, I can darken the hills, you see, because the hill is made out of blue and Payne's grey, and if you add red to it, this is what happens. It gets darker. But it's actually quite interesting. And this is still glazing. Okay, I'm not really painting, I'm just sort of scrubbing colour on there. Always keep in mind, you cannot make a mistake. Let's have a little bit up there. In fact, let's just clean the brush up there. Get all the paint off that I can so that I can assess whether I want to put more on. Even the tiniest amount of paint at this stage will affect what you've already painted. In other words, I'm putting red on blue, it is bound to get darker. So if I want a little bit more dark up here, I don't have to add grey, I just add a bit more red. Like that. I could add grey, but it may be a little bit lifeless, so let's just stick with the red for the moment. A little bit up there. But then introduce maybe a tiny bit more light back in that cloud there. Let's just have a little bit of that off, you see, putting on and taking off. We could say, what could we say? We could say, I want a bit of a light streak going through the middle there. Okay, that's all you have to do. Hope it's showing. It is very, very subtle. I think it is, but that was just a demo there. I didn't really want to do that. So I'll go back to that. You can always go back, you see. Let's just have a little bit more in the sky there. Now I'm not just going to be doing the sky. What I want to do is warm up the entire picture. I just take that off there a little bit. Okay, composition, you see. Now if I had that conveniently all sitting there, it wouldn't look right. It needs to go off the picture occasionally. Same with clouds. Whenever you paint clouds, they have to go off the edge. Just have to imagine you're looking through a window and the clouds are moving past the window. A little bit more up there. A little bit in the lights just here. I mean, it's so small, you see. It just adds a little bit of warmth. Keep the light there, possibly. Maybe not, I don't know. Let's try it. See what we get. Yeah, I think that's okay. There we go. So already, you see, the sky's gone from... I'll put up a comparison picture later, but it's already gone from slightly flat to a little bit more interesting. You could add yellow to this. Now, I wouldn't add the yellow glaze when I'm doing the other glaze, because I know that I'll just get green, and I don't want that. So, not in the sky anyway. So I'm just going to try adding. Let's see, what should we do? Let's have some red ochre. Good old red ochre. Can't do much without red ochre. If you can't get red ochre in the States, just get transparent oxide red. I think it's basically the same thing. It's made from rust, and rust is pretty universal, so it's a rusty colour. Now you could say it's brown. It is a brown. It's a browny red, I suppose. If you want true brown, you'd go for burnt sienna or burnt umber, and you know, they're brown. But I find them a little bit dead, actually. They don't have enough depth for me. So I want to warm up the grass area. So what should we do? Let's just put it on, see what we get. Let's just warm up the ground a bit. Because if the sky is going to be that dark and red, you see, the grass is going to have a little bit of heat in it. Let's have a line across there. A bit of mud. Don't be afraid. No, this is this is mud, not the other mud. The other mud being when paint is so thick it's out of control. This is like mud colour, so maybe some mud in the water. Let's just put a few bits. Looking at the shape here, let's darken. I think I mentioned in the last video that I would sort out the shadows to the tree, sort of on the next sitting, which of course this is. Obviously, whatever shadow is here has to exactly match what's above it. So make sure you put it in the right place. It's like when you if you put the moon in the sky, for instance, or the sun, your reflection has to be exactly on the same line. So if I put the moon there and it's going to reflect in the water, you've got to almost get a piece of string with a weight on it to get exactly the right spot. Eventually you can just do it. You'll know where to put it. But if you're beginning, it's worth doing because there's nothing, well, to my eye, when I look at a painting that somebody's done and they put the thing in the sky and they put the moon in the wrong place in the water, that's when I tend to turn off a bit and sort of go and look at something else. So Payne's, I've got some Payne's grey. Now for the reflection in the water, I'm going to add a little bit of Payne's grey to that. And as we're on glazing, you see it looks like a lot on there, but that's just a stain really. The shadow in the water, I'm just going to sort of just darken down just a touch. And I can add a little bit of white again in a minute, just to put a bit of a twinkle back in there. Do I like that? Oh, it's sort of okay. I'm quite into mud occasionally. I mean, if you're going to have water, there's usually a bit of mud at the edges. There we are. So there's a slightly warmer bit of ground there. Now, I don't want the shadow on the ground, the warmer ground, to go up the tree. See, so I've painted over my tree trunks. Can you actually see it? Possibly. So if you want to take some paint off the tree trunk, just take it off, just wipe it off like that, and suddenly it pings out in its original position. Let's attempt to zoom in a little bit there, just to make it slightly clear. Okay, so let me exaggerate it. Supposing I put something dark on here, right, generally dark. Okay, so that tree trunk now has gone into shadow, and it's sitting further back. You may want that, and that's how you would do it. But in this case, I don't, because it's not that far back into the wood. So I just want to bring that one forward again. So it's just a piece of paper. Take off the glaze, like so. It's just a wipe, and it's gone. The others, I don't know, maybe these three here, that one, and that one, I'm going to pull them back. I might add a few extra white highlights on the tree trunks. This is probably a good stage to do it. So let me just pull the bottoms back, just by taking the brown off. Okay, that one can probably stay, and I might just shove in a few light catching twigs. The other thing I might try at this stage is to get some more effect on the foliage. It's quite rounded looking. Okay, so you've got shadow underneath, slightly dark on top, where it's next to the sky. That works quite well. But the highlights across here, I could probably make them a little bit more interesting, I think. It's still, well, no, it isn't. I was going to say it's still glazing. It's not quite glazing. It's I don't know, touching up a bit, I suppose. Okay, so again, I'm glazing on the mountains here, but I'm not zoomed in the right area. Let's just move across there. Okay, so I quite like the way the mountains worked. If you want to see how I did that, obviously look at the my previous video, but it literally is just that. It's just, you know, don't fret about it, just do it. Tiny amount of colour left on that. And again, you won't see that until I take the final photograph, I guess. And there we go, a little bit more. Just there, it's not showing up. Let's get a bit more. Okay, I like the dark top to the mountain because that sort of contrasts nicely with that bit of white. And I'm going to show you in a minute what to do with the clouds. We were talking in the group about how to get your clouds looking realistic and slightly fluffy. And I'll show you how to do that at the glazing stage. Actually, yeah, okay. A little bit of shadow just in there. See, shadow is basically red on the blue, so just darken that bit there. But I still want to keep the light below that, so that we have a clean line just there. See, so just take that back off, just there. Okay, now supposing I wanted to do something with the clouds, what would I do? Just have a little swoop around here. Maybe that I'll show you that on the other painting. This one doesn't look as though it needs it much. However, looking at it compositionally, that I don't like that isolated cloud there. There's no link across. It's like, I don't know, I can't explain that. It's just not right. So I'm going to get a little bit of titanium white. And I mentioned to my group before I started painting that I'm having a bit of a problem in France finding the right brushes. The place that I used to get them at is shut down, and I've scoured the town and I just cannot find the right brushes, so I'm going to have to sort something out there. Right, in the absence of brushes, I've got fingers. So here's how you add a little bit of cloud and make it look as random and messy as possible. There you go, that's all it takes, just that. Just add a few more bits just across there. Who needs brushes? In fact, I like the finger effect with white paint. In fact, I'm going to do it a little bit more because I really like that there. You may not want to do this the way I'm doing it exactly because some people are sensitive to paint. I'm not, luckily, so I don't ever wear gloves. In fact, I'm probably more sensitive to the gloves than I am to the paint. I'm just going to make sure you're seeing all of that. You are. Right, so that little bit of light catching the cloud there. Right, so we got the sun is setting, and we could say the sun is setting here. So let's a little bit more paint there. Let's just add a little bit of light just here. Now you may have noticed, and it was completely deliberate. Let's move it to the middle of the painting a bit and then zoom in a little bit. As long as I use the finger that doesn't have the paint on it when I touch my camera. Okay, now is this still glazing? Maybe it's not just totally glazing, but I mean, if you think about it, glazing is adding paint to more oil than paint and smearing it and wiping off and pushing it around. Really, I don't know where the word glazing comes from. It's been around for centuries. But, you know, is it just painting using a different method? Why glazing? Anyway, I might look into that. The point I'm trying to make here is that when I put that bit of white paint on, I fragmented the top of the mountain. To me, that looks more realistic than a hard line. If you have a hard line, it can get a little bit boring. You know, there's nothing, quite frankly, to me, as boring as a dead straight line. I like a line with a little bit of a twist in it. So, and a few bumps, because who knows what those, what's going on there. Is it a bit of cloud touching the top of the mountain? Perhaps it is. So that continue across. Let's put a little bit there. Let's just sort of push it into it can go as far as you like into the tree, because I can always, cut it back. But the effect of the shape of a finger in the paint actually does make quite nice little clouds. Dead easy. All you've got to do is just sort of not do anything predictable. Same thing everywhere on your painting. Nothing must be predictable. So, instant realistic clouds without even trying. Let's pull a little bit of that across there. Even if you leave the fingerprints on there, you never know, one day it might make the painting more valuable, because they'll say, "Ooh, his fingerprints are actually on the painting." You never know. Okay, so that it's still, I think it's glazing, because it's still a lot of oil with not much paint. And let's break that a little bit, that and that. Okay, that's fine. I might leave that. That's looking okay. And then here, I'm just going to blend it away where it hits the tree, so that it becomes slightly vague as to where the tree starts and the sky starts, because I will work back over that in a moment with some green, maybe I'm pushing this too far, green glaze on a piece of paper. So let's go to the trees. I want to get more depth in the trees. Once I've got the depth in the trees, I might do a little bit of fiddling over there on that bit, but not yet. Very quickly, just the tree, and I've got paint on the camera, typical. Wipe that off. Okay, so in here, right, the thing is with light on trees, if it's a yellow tree, it'll be yellow light. And I know you get yellow trees, particularly at certain times of the year. This is not at that time of the year. This is not, as we call it in England, autumn or fall. It's full summer by the look of it. So if I want to paint leaves on there, what I need to do is add white. There's already white in the green, but I'm just going to go a little bit slightly more over the top, just because I want to get some more texture in it. So, piece of paper, lots of bumps on it. The more bumps, the better. So my technique is to just roll it up like that in my hands, make as many bumps as possible, pinch it around a bit, give it a bad day, and you get lots and lots of bumps all over the paper. And then fold it around so that you find the bumpiest part, and then just touch it on some paint. So I'm going to spread out some light green and then just dab it. Don't over dab it. You don't want solid lumps of colour on the paper, literally just that. Okay, and then just have fun. Right, so I'm going to start forming the trees a bit. So we've got obviously quite a powerful light over that side of the painting there. So let's just do it and see what we get. So let's just bring out a few bits there. Always keep turning the paper so that you don't have repeat patterns. Repeat patterns are predictable, obviously, and you don't want that. So let's have a little bit. We've got a little bit of shadow there. Let's just put a bit of light in it, like so. And in a minute, I'll be going over it with a bit of white too. A few up in the sky. You don't need to paint twigs at the edges of trees. Once you start doing that, your painting will become stiff and amateurish. So it's possible to paint twigs without painting them. Well, I'm glad there was some glazing in this video, but anyway. Yes, if you were standing here looking at that tree, chances are you wouldn't see the twigs too far away. You'll get a sort of smudge. It'll look like a smudge because it doesn't really matter how sharp your eyes are. Defining every twig is not going to be possible. So what you do is you put the leaves on and make the shape of them in the sky broken up enough so that people will build their own twigs. So, but don't go thump, 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 thump. You've got to be a little bit delicate, just a few little bits catching the light away from the tree. And I'm sure you well, hope you'll agree. You don't have to agree, but it does work. It's the best way to give the impression of twigs bearing leaves. And that's what we're all about. It's a form of impression. Do I need to add an ism to the end of that? It's a form of impressionism. Okay, let's have a few slightly stronger ones there. Oh, way too strong. Don't go with it. It looks okay on the painting. I'm just slightly worried about how it looks on the video. Okay, I can see that now. Okay, that's okay. We could just let it dissipate gradually. So when things are too isolated, that's when they usually look wrong. Like that cloud that I altered there. It's better now that it's spread out slightly. So let's just put tiny bits of green over there. Do they even show up? No, they don't. Let's grab a bit more. Looking at the painting across the room, I can see a few things. Right, I don't like that in there. Let's just put a few of those on here, and that'll take attention away from that dark shadow up there. Just sort of mute it a little bit. And then I think this here needs a little bit of light across there. This is where you, I mean, I can explain what I'm doing here, I suppose, up to a point, but it's one of those things that you have to just do it until it looks right. No sharp straight lines, definitely. And if you feel you've gone too far, just take it off. You know, just wipe it. Everything underneath is dry, so you won't actually spoil it. Okay, I want to mute that shadow in there just a touch. It's a little bit too punchy for me. Okay. And what I'm going to do next is just, let's zoom back a bit. I mentioned that I was going to add some white. Now, I'm not quite sure why, unless I decide that one of the trees in the bunch has got a load of blossom on it. So, a wild fruit tree has snuck into the picture, and it's got a bit of blossom on it, so just be a little bit careful how we do that. Don't want to go way over the top. So we're going to go a little bit over the top, but don't go too far. So let's assume it's this one here, and it's got a few little bits of blossom floating around in there. Why not? I haven't painted blossom for years. Anyway, there's something going on there with some kind of thing, some blossomy plant. Okay, quite like that. Spread it across there a little bit. I won't go too far on that because I want to move over to the next painting in a second. So that, I think that probably gives you an idea of what you can do. The sky is obviously very quick. Let's zoom back and then I'll change over to the next picture, which is massive. Right, so this is part 2. So this is a painting that I painted quite a few years ago. And The size, I'll put it on the screen in inches later, but the size in centimetres, I should have measured this before I started. That's 120 centimetres across. By 95 deep. So whatever that is in inches. I honestly have no idea at the moment. So what am I going to do? I'm going to try and make the sky slightly more dramatic. Oh, it's reasonably dramatic, but it's not quite dramatic enough for me. So I'm going to, again, this is glazing. This will all be glazing. I won't be painting any details in there. So a bit of linseed oil, and I'm going to mix Payne's grey, because I mean, if you're going to have drama, you're going to have drama, haven't you? Can't just have drama with a small d, it's got to at least have a big D in it. And to that I'm just going to add Japanese red, and the only reason I'm doing that is because it's on the palette. There's no real pre-planning here, because don't need to, frankly. Right, so I've got some dark clouds that I really like. I've got the light side of the painting, slightly darker side, but not, you know, it's not monumentally dark. So let's see what we can do. Let's just put that on there. Don't be too fussy about what it looks like. Just sort of put it in, because that will change big time in a minute. So that Payne's grey with a bit of Japanese red. And of course, with glazing, so you've always got to be aware it's mixing with whatever's on the painting before. It's going to show through, and it sort of enhances your colour. I don't need to add blue to what I've just put on, because the blue is going to show through. Now, when a painting's been dry, I was going to say this earlier, when a painting's been dry for a while, when you put oil onto it, you might get beading. Now, you may not be able to see the beading, but I can. There's a little bit there. All you do is scrub it in a bit more. Now, you can go over the painting with turpentine to just wipe off any surface grease. You don't have to do it, you can do it this way. Just keep working it and it'll mush its way or mash its way through the grease. If you do use turpentine on it, don't rub too hard, because you'll start to break the paint down. I mean, you have to do it a lot to have an effect, but if you do it really hard, it will actually do that. It'll damage the bond that you have. It wipes out the linseed oil. The linseed oil, of course, is the thing that holds everything together. If you don't have the oil in it, not necessarily just linseed, it could be any oil, whatever oil you're using. I just happen to use linseed, and it can have an effect. So, right, I'm going to be mindful about the light a little bit, even though I always say it bounces all over the place. The light is basically over this side of the painting, so I'm going to sort of keep the right side of the clouds. For instance, this will have a little bit of a shadow on it here, because the light's coming across there. Okay, and under here, maybe just a little tiny touch there. It could be unbelievably subtle. And even subtler. Take a bit off there. Take a bit off there. See the bottom edge of that? No, it's sort of quite interesting. It could be, you know, clouds that are getting ready to chuck their load of rain down. I might just soften it just a touch. Again, it's just a piece of paper. That's all it is. And do it as crazily as you can. Don't be organised at all. Be a cloud. Be free as a cloud. Just sort of, you know, don't worry about it. I keep saying that, and I hope it's I hope it's sort of getting to people a little bit, because it's true. You've just got to not worry. I'm just going to continue with that, but add just a tiny bit more red. And again, as I said, this is all very subtle. So let's get a bit of red in it. Where should we put it? Let's have a bit of red just there. And there. In fact, let's have it so the light's coming up here. Okay, we've got a red light coming from this area here. Let's just get a bit in there. Glazing is particularly good for portraits. If you've painted a portrait of someone and it looks a bit pale, you can add, well, whatever colour you like, whatever you decide the colour of the light is that's hitting the person's face. The glazing videos that I've watched, the colour that tends to get glazed the most are sort of very neutral greens for shadows. You know, when there's a shadow on human skin, that is white skin, it tends to lean towards green. And if you don't have, you know, they're called cool shadows. If you don't have cool shadows on the skin tones, then it just isn't right. So soften the top edge of that a little bit there. Okay. Okay, let's have a streak. Why not? You see, what I'm trying to do, I mean, there's plenty of texture in the sky, but I want to just sort of bump up some of the really flat bits, just to give them a little bit more interest. Not to say, of course, that a painting that has lots of flat bits in it, that can also be interesting, depending on what's in the painting. If it's like a scene with a boat, maybe a ship on water, then that can look pretty cool, because the attention will usually go to the ship, depending on how well you've painted it. Of course, if you've painted a rubbish ship, then people might go to the sky, because it's more interesting. It's up to you to decide that. Okay, a little bit of red there. Let's just move it around a bit. There's a few bits up the top. Let's have a bit more. Let's have... Right, this is the same brush, by the way, that I've used for the previous painting. I haven't wiped it at all yet. You can just keep adding colour. So I've got a red bit of light down here. We've got some clouds on the horizon there. I wonder whether you can see these marks. You might be able to see them. I'll probably get rid of them eventually, but let's say, okay, so we've got low light. You can tell that by the contrasts in the trees. There has to be you know, a very low bright light behind them. I'm just wondering what will happen if I put a red streak across there. Do I want to do that? Don't think I do yet. What I'm going to do is just exaggerate this red light underneath the clouds. So there'll be a little bit of red light under that one. And again, notice that I'm moving in all directions here. You've got to keep a lively motion in your brush to encourage you to not stay in one spot too long. The best things you can do is keep moving on a painting. You might do a little bit of work there, and then you think, okay, I'll have a little bit over here, let's have a touch there. Keep moving about and sort of assess the thing as a whole. Don't focus in on one point unless you're into highly detailed paintings. For something like this, you've got to see it globally. So a little bit there, let's see how that sits. That sits all right. And then a little bit there and a little bit here. A few bumps up there, a little bit here. Okay, so I'm starting to really like all this red now. Any bits that look as though they're too harsh, just knock them back a bit like that. Just touch it, that's all it takes. This has to be the easiest part of a painting, I think, if you're doing this style. So there's some nice lights there. I'm still slightly intrigued by the idea of what a really bright light would look like, because I can always, as I say, consistently, you can always take it off. So let's just be bold here. Let's get a bit more oil. And You know my mantra, you have to be brave. And you can't make an omelette unless you break an egg. Okay, so a nice lump of Japanese red on this. Let's be really brave. Let's just sort of go for it. Let's put a line across there. Let's just take it right off the edge. You see, this is the sort of confidence you need. You know it can't go wrong, so just do it, because you can undo it. And then we'll taper that off, like so. Barely touching that there. Okay, so the sky turns lighter over there. Right, so there's a red streak. And then all you do is just knock it back a bit. Okay, that warmed that up a little bit. And why not? Okay, now let's introduce it up into the sky just above there. So what you don't want, you see, is people to think there's a dead straight line. You can do that in parts of a painting, but it has to be sort of carefully placed to make it work. And maybe I'll cover that in another video. But here, what I want to do now is start pulling this red tone so that it relates. It has to relate. See, if I don't relate it to the sky above, it'll be a separate entity, and it won't have the same impact. What it will do, there's a technical word for it, it'll look wrong. It's about as technical as it gets here. Let's have a little bit more. See, so I'm pulling it away from just there up into the sky above without really blending. I mean, I'm not sort of like, you know, there's a red bit and I'll gradually blend it into blue. I don't want to do that. I want to sort of introduce it to the rest of the sky so that, as I say, they relate. They're all part of the same thing. That mark there looks like a UFO, that, doesn't it? Maybe you can't see it much. Possibly you can. Yes, you can. I'll fix that in a minute. Right, so I'm going to now do a little bit of cloud smudging. I don't need to go over this with a big brush, you see, to soften it. I can use exactly the same brush or piece of paper. So if I just do that, you see, there's so little paint on the brush. What it does, in fact, it just makes interesting little bits of fragmented cloud there as I stop and move in the other direction. So I'm going to use that. Quite like it. The more complex I can make a sky look without going over the top, of course. Don't want to go too far. It just adds that extra juiciness. And I'll tell you something, when this is finished and dry, when it's varnished, it really, what's the word? It really zings. I don't mean sings, I mean zings with a Z or a Z on the beginning. It makes it jump. I'm really pro varnish. I don't like matte paintings. There we go. I'm putting hardly any colour in there. Just a bit of red just to darken that, just a touch there. Okay, what am I going to do over on the right hand side? So we've got this massive dark cloud. Let's just, because the oil is already on there now, so we're just going to put a tiny bit of white on the tip of this brush. And I suppose it, you know, is it still glazing? I'm not really sure, but smudging. So there's a little bit of smudging going on there. And then let's pull a bit of shape into this cloud. So what we're going to do underneath there, we're going to, yeah, let's have a little bit of light just catching there. So that the transition between the white or dark of the cloud and the blue background in some places can be crisp, but not too crisp. You've got to have this fluffiness, otherwise it will cease to be a cloud and it will turn to giant sausages in the sky, and you really don't want that. So keep fluffing it. You've got to have a certain amount of fluff. So there's that UFO there, so I'll get rid of that. We'll just put a cloud on it, like so. There we are. It's now an identified object. Down in here, let's get a little bit of form. Don't want that to look like a flat shape. That's something you have to avoid. Anything like that, if you just have a flat colour, it's almost like a hole in reality. You've got to maintain some form, and particularly on a painting of this size, I think. Now, there are times when you can get away with turning that into a big flat shape, but it's actually quite an acceptable style. You just, oversimplify. In fact, who did I see? I'll have to try and figure out who the artist is. If I can, I'll put it on the screen and I'll put an example up around about now. And yeah, there are times when it can work. Okay, over here I've still got that mark. It's bugging me a little bit, so I'm just going to get a bit of white paint on that and take that off. Just put some paint over it and then just, mush it a bit. The trick is not to paint like you're painting a door. You're not painting a door, you're painting a picture. So make the brush stroke interesting. There we are, there's a bit more light on that edge there. Actually, while I'm at it, are there any other marks? There's a mark up here in the in there. So white is excellent for getting rid of that. It's white covers most things. In fact, white and royal blue, amazing powers of obliteration that they have. Right, before I stop, let me just get into composition slightly. Okay, what worries me and why does it worry me? There's a very simple bit of grey there, which has got some shapes in it, but this worries me. And I think it just needs, I don't know what it needs, but I'll do it. It needs something like that doing to it. Just to change that weird shape. And again, this is something that you'll pick up. The more you paint, you get, hopefully, you'll get an instinct for composition. You just look at it and you just know what's right pretty well immediately. And I think what we could benefit from. Now, I'm always slightly against putting the centre of the picture as the centre of attention. However, looking at this, I can see that what I would like to see, even though it's the middle, I'd like to see a little bit more white. Oh, that's bizarre. Where did I pick up that green from? Okay, good example of you can't go wrong. You just take it off. A little bit of green going in there. Does it show on the video? Barely. Right, not worried about that. So what I'm going to do, now I've got a bit of green on that brush, can I lose it? Let me just give it a quick wipe. So what I want to do, I've got some white on here. I think what I'm after is just a little tiny bit of contrast in a couple of places. Now notice the edge of the cloud. I'm not painting the edge of the cloud in the traditional or expected, not traditional, the expected way. I'm using the tip of the brush because clouds are made out of water vapour. Okay, they dissipate, they're fluffy. I know I've seen some pretty crisp cumulus nimbus, but I guess I haven't paid much attention to them. Let's have a little bit of light there. And just here. Just want a little sort of bit of a hot spot. And hopefully no funny faces, so I just lose that guy's beard. Okay, a little bit of light there. Something else you could do is you could apply a little bit of paint with a palette knife. Maybe next time, won't do it on this, but you can have one really sharp blaze of light, which is better applied with a palette knife. Can I do down here? Am I happy with that down there? Not quite. Let's just put some white on there, just for the heck of it, because I want to see what happens when I do it. Okay, quite like that. Yeah, that's interesting. So we've got this sort of blue area here, which was landscape, still is landscape, I guess. And we've got a ridge line. Do we want anything else? I'm just going to have a quick experiment, and then that'll be it. So I'm just going to get some royal blue, and I'm going to put a tiny bit of Japanese red. This is a real minimalist palette, by the way. All I've used is Japanese red, light green, tiny bit of red ochre, but not on this picture, and Payne's grey. So I'm going to just take some royal blue, mix a bit of oil with it, and then just put in a little touch of Japanese red. Right, it's still a glaze because I'm working in a pool of oil over there. And I've just got this idea in my head, and it's something that appears in a lot of my paintings, and that's to have a little bit of a hill somewhere. I've got a little bump in the middle there. It's not really got much hillness about it though. So I think we should put it there, because that's usually it's usually what I do, isn't it? Am I getting predictable? Maybe. Okay, let's just see what happens when we put this colour on here, because why not? We are here to play. Let's just have an interesting shape. Right, what you don't want is just a pimple. You don't want pimples. Nobody wants pimples, no matter what age you are. Particularly when you're younger, but who wants pimples? What you want is a hill that's got interest on the edge. So just, this is where you're going to play mode now. Let's pull that across there. Let's put another hill there. And then a little bit of a, I don't know, something. In fact, I might cover that a little bit there. Let's just cover that slightly. Just make it a bit more interesting. Maybe if I actually get to finish this painting, there's a strong possibility I might even sell this one. Or try anyway. Never try too hard. If you're going to sell paintings, don't force them on people. People like to make their own minds up. They tend to ask if they want something. That's what I've always found. Okay, I'm just going to try and get a little bit more something going on in that hill there. Oh, I don't know what I'm after, but maybe it comes across and then drops away like so. There we go. All right. And then over there, same colour, royal blue, Japanese red. And let's finish off that hill. I'll tell you what I'm going to do. I'm going to move you closer to that. Okay, so if you have trouble with mountains, try the glazing method. A glazed mountain. Okay. Brush, point the bristles at the ceiling. Because in this case, the underside of the brush is the bit that's actually going to cause some interesting textures. Create. There we go. That's a. You see, because you can't actually see the marks that the underside is making. So if you just trust the process, it will create shapes for you that you really don't expect. So there's something going on over here, and it's like the painting appears without you sweating over it. I'm going to pull this colour down and into the blue below, like that, so that we lose the dividing line, and they just become part of the same thing. And you see that these bits that are left, now again, because we're glazing, all right, okay, I can't destroy anything underneath. I could get some paper in there and get all kinds of different textures on that. Not sure that I will, because I don't think it needs it. It's sort of, the shapes there are sort of trying to give out their own message, so I might not bother them too much. Let's just lose that little bit of blue. I think that looks reasonably passable. There's some distant mountains. Let's move across there. So it's starting to get a bit snaky in the middle. Hard one to explain that. Snaky. Going too thin, I suppose. although I don't know, I could probably get away with that. I want to do something with this though. So again, don't forget, all the way through, all I've done is wipe this brush once. All the colours that are, and there's very few, but all the colours that are on there are still doing tricks. Let's put a bit of a top to that mountain. Bring that around there a bit. Is that clear? Just make sure you're seeing everything. Take it up a bit. Right, I don't want this to look like water here. I think it's sort of, I prefer the open land look, but let's pull that into there. That's it. It's much more, well, I suppose I like cinematic. I like cinematic views. That's why I like Albert Bierstadt paintings. That guy really knew what he was doing. Unlike me, who just makes it up as I go. But cinematic, it's always got a certain appeal to it. What happens if I move the camera? That'll help, won't it? Oh no, you can see it. So down here, right, let's just pull. You see, I'm using the negative side of the brush, as I call it, so that what it produces is a little bit unpredictable. There we are. Distant hills, I don't like that. That's got to change. Yeah, I think we can get away with that. So my horizon has definitely reached, dare I say it, new horizons. Reasonably pleased with that. Let's zoom back and look at the whole thing again. I dread to think what the postage would cost, or as you call it in the US, shipping, would cost for a painting this size. It would take some serious packaging. But don't let that put you off. If you want it, it's yours. Now, over here, let's just sort of break that a little bit there. Make some of these, just add a few more white bits. Okay, is that enough white bits? Am I happy? Something bothering me. And I see it, it's there. Don't be afraid of looking silly. If you're painting in public, half shut your eyes every now and then to look at your painting. It simplifies everything and you see what's not right. You get a better idea of the values and tones and how things work, basically. It simplifies it. Let's have some broken white bits floating across there. Can't resist that. That's how you get the wind in the sky. Okay, one last look before I stop. Right, don't like that. That needs a few white bits there. The more you paint, as I think I might have mentioned earlier, the more you see things like this. You just look at the picture and you think, that's not right. What can I do? And usually the best thing you can do in this style is to slightly mess it up. Yeah, I think that might be it for the day. Quite pleased with my mountains. I'm glad I got into that. What may I do? No, I think that's it. Okay, let's try one more quick thing. A tiny bit of white on the brush. I like the idea of the ground slipping away just there. All right, so I think that's it. So there we go. It's been a long one, this. Don't know how long, but definitely longer than normal, I think. So yeah, thanks for being here. If you want to come to a Zoom class, you go to my website, that'll explain how. You can come to France if you want lessons, but I'm not doing many this year, maybe 2. I think I might do 2. We'll see how that goes. But yeah, the Zoom class is always a bit fun. We're gonna, now that I've got to the end pretty well here, we're gonna sit and chat for, well, till we drop, basically. And it's always good fun, I have to say. I know they're listening, but they're a nice bunch. And yeah, it's a laugh. So yeah, if you want to come, let me know. And if you become a patron via my Patreon page, links below. If you pay €30 a month, you get 2 classes. A class is normally €30, but if you pay 30 a month on Patreon, you get 2 classes a month. And there we are. I think that's it. So hope you like that. I hope you enjoyed it. And see you on the next video. Bye for now.